So a while back I posted a video about a number 4 Mark 1 in original condition I purchased from RTI. It was a Long Branch manufacturer, and I ended up having to send it back because there was a issue with it. I'll show you in the video, but basically the bolt head guide that it would slide across was chipped pretty badly, and so kind of rendered it unusable. So I sent it back and took a while, but I got a replacement. Looks pretty good, so I'll go ahead and take a look at it. So looking at the buttstock, it looks dirty, but looks pretty good. I don't see any cracks or anything. You can see just a little dent there. This one has the earlier war milled rear sight. One I had before had the later war stamped on the Mark III. See, the magazine's a little worn. But generally the finish looks pretty good on it. You can see the 4 stock here. The finish is a little bit more worn here towards the muzzle. Got the import mark right there underneath the muzzle. You can see on the side there's some kind of rack number that was put on the butt. See the serial number here. Hard to make out what that stamp is on top. And another dent right here. You can see the marking there. This one's a 1942 dated. The one I had before was 1943. There is some significant wear here on top of where the chamber is and the receiver. The rest of the receiver looks like it's in pretty good shape with the finish. The 4 stock here looks pretty good. I did notice, just looking at it, there's a little bit of a crack here. So hopefully I can repair that. Overall looks pretty good. Did notice that this is bent a little bit here on the left side. Try to straighten that out. The way the finish looks, it really does look like this was probably wire wheeled here. You can see the marks. You can see that there's a lot more finish in areas that would have gotten missed by the wire wheel. So it's very likely this is wire wheeled, but can't definitively say either way. That certainly looks like it's wire wheeled with the marks on it. So looking at the action here, you can see that there's a very slight chip here, but not really worrisome. The other one I had a much larger chip in that area, and it wasn't really causing issues, but it certainly could cause it. You don't want the bolt head to jump out when you're cycling the rifle, so definitely had it get replaced. But otherwise, it looks pretty good. Really like the earlier date on here, 1942, as opposed to the 43 that I had before. The underside looks pretty good too. There's a dent there. Looks like another marking here. Got to see if after I clean it out I can make it out better. Looks like a marking here and the serial number here. think it matches the rifle, but I'll have to take a look at it in better light. And this one has a steel butt plate. Butt plate screws look like they're in pretty good shape. So I got it all broken down. I'll go ahead and take a closer look at all the parts. Four stock looks pretty good. Just dirty. I don't see any rot or any cracks or anything in there. Same with the top hand guards. There's some mold in here I'll have to clean out. This one looks pretty good though. I don't see any pitting underneath the wood line here. Looks like there's some proof marks here I'll be able to see once I clean it up. But overall the bluing looks really good. The finish under the wood. I don't see any pitting. Same with the other side here. Did put some chalk here in the marking. You can see the long branch mark. Finish is pretty good in the trigger guard. Firing pin looks good. Sometimes they're bent, but this one's pretty good shape. The magazine came apart pretty well. You can tell that the finish on this one's pretty worn. This one probably got wire wheeled. You can definitely see the bend here, so I have to straighten that out. Now the butt plate looks like it got a little bent here where the trap door is. I'll have to fix that, so I'll be able to open that up with the butt plate on. You can see it's pretty dirty in there as well. I'll have to clean that out. The buttstock looks to be in good shape though. I don't see any cracks or rot. Just have to clean it out really well. So overall, just dirty, it needs to be cleaned, but it should come out pretty well. Go ahead and get started, and then I'll do a video of it once I got it all cleaned up. The receiver looks pretty good. What I like to do is I do a good overall cleaning, and then I come back about 2 weeks later after it had some time to sit in some of the lubricant and do another go at it. That usually helps. You can see some good proof marks there. Maybe inspection marks. Barrel looks pretty good. A lot of good finish left on it. Barrel bands are pretty worn. The stock's coming out really nice. This is after a coat of linseed oil. Probably put a few more coats on it. You can see the wood's really starting to come out and look really nice on this. Same with the top hand guards. It's got a really nice finish on it. And of course the buttstock here is coming out really nicely. Butt plate's cleaning out really well. You can see it's got a nice stamping in there. Magazine got cleaned up pretty well. So go ahead and put it back together and I'll do a video of it all assembled. It's got it all cleaned up and reassembled. Go ahead and take a closer look at it. So the long branches were made in Canada starting around 1942. They started with a Mark I pattern, which was before the Mark I Star, which is the austerity pattern. And the Mark I had a similar method of removing the bolt as the other number 4s with a little push button lever down here. The Mark I Stars, they actually implemented this little cutout here, and this is actually where the bolt head will slide out and you can pull the bolt out from there. So a little interesting there. Looking at the serial number, this was probably earlier in 1942. I know the serial numbers got much higher than that by the end of 1942 into 43. You can see this one has the ladder sight here. This is actually milled. It's not the later war version, the Mark III, that was stamped. So pretty interesting there. When they switched over from the number 1 to the number 4, they removed the rear notch sight here and went with the peep sight instead. It was just a little easier to get a better sight picture and train soldiers on how to fire with it than the kind of more dovetail sights. It is a little heavier as well. Used a heavier barrel than a number 1. And the barrel is, as you can see, has a little bit of play to it, which helps improve accuracy. The nose cap on the number 1 was kind of an issue with the barrel being able to move and affected accuracy, so they changed that with the number 4. Canadians started making these not long after the British. The British started making them in 1941, so they weren't too far behind. 1942, some other countries like Australia never switched over to the number 4. India as well, they stepped with the number 1 rifles for quite some time, especially with India making them well into the 1960s. So this one's a pretty good example of a number 4 made in Canada. They were churning out a lot of these, basically because they were really short of infields at the start of World War II, especially since a lot of infields were left behind at Dunkirk or Singapore and various other areas where the Commonwealth forces were defeated early in the war. So just an interesting rifle overall. Really like it. The number 4 is definitely a more streamlined, modernized, simplified version of the Lee Enfield over the number 1. So it's definitely an interesting type of rifle. Steel butt plate got a little bit of marring there. Just overuse. It does look like there was some wire wheel done because you can see some of it got onto the wood here. But overall, the finish looks really nice on this, on the wood. Bolt's pretty much in the white here, but the receiver otherwise looks pretty good. You can see this was probably wire wheeled here on the magazine. Luckily the wood wasn't damaged from it. Just moving down the rifle, the wood looks really nice on this. There's no cracks or damage to the wood. The finish is really nice. The linseed oil really cleaned it up nicely. You can see that there's a lot of worn finish here. Go ahead and flip it over. Starting with the buttstock again. You can see kind of some more wear on the wood from the wire wheel. Looks like they pretty much polished the butt plate. Got that rack number there. Go ahead and put some chalk on the markings. It's got a pretty strong serial number down here, and then the long branch stamp looks pretty good. There is an L there, probably see it. However, it's not deep enough to really grab the chalk. But it's a Mark I star dated 1942. Just moving down the rifle here. See the wood's in pretty good shape. And there's a lot of worn finish as well on this side of the front band here. See the underside here looks pretty good. Magazine's worn, but other than that, overall, the finish looks pretty nice on this. Go ahead and take a look at the bore. So overall, a pretty good example of a number 4 Mark I from World Tiger Imports. I'd say that the original condition rifles are a pretty good deal, and if you're looking for a long branch or a Savage, the extra $50 is, pretty good, especially looking at how much these run on other websites, especially on some of the auction sites where they can get up to $1,000 pretty easily. So highly recommend it. It was a joy to clean, and looking forward to taking it to the range. I'll have some more videos coming out, mainly some of my collection videos. I think the next one up is going to be the K98s. So if you'd like to be notified about that, feel free to subscribe. If you have any questions about the number 4 or the long branch models, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll have to answer them. Meantime, thank you for watching.